His tongue go. Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Pritchard for another episode of Pritchard's Podcast for Civics. Today, it's about different forms of government that you can find all around the world. With government, it requires that someone's in charge. So the question is, who's in charge? So who rules? Who's in charge? Maybe it's one person or a small group of people. Maybe it's a king or a queen. Or maybe it's somebody who by themselves makes all the rules that everybody else has to follow. Or a religious leader. Maybe it's the people themselves. And sometimes it could be that there's no government at all. So let's go back to the ancient Greeks and Romans to determine what kind of words they used to describe who ruled. The ancient Greeks gave us a root word that we use today as archy, which means to rule. We also use krasi as well, which also means to rule. So depending on what you put in front of it, then tells you who rules. For instance, autocracy means the rule of one person, and that's because auto means by itself, or one. A lot like autopilot on an airplane, or those automatic doors. Auto means by itself. So autocracy means that one person has control. That one person is leading the rest. One example of an autocracy is a monarchy. This is the rule of a king or a queen who inherits the position and rules for life. This means that monarchies generally are controlled by a family. The king or the queen pass on their power to their oldest child, who becomes the next king or queen, and they pass it on to their child, and so on. So it stays in the family. And this form of government in which families are ruling places has gone all the way back to the ancient Egyptians and further, where families ruled over these lands for generations. The same could be said of the ancient Chinese and monarchies throughout history and throughout the world. Take, for instance, the royal family that rules Great Britain or the United Kingdom for well over 200 years, going all the way back to colonial times to today with Queen Elizabeth II. And monarchies are found all throughout the world, whether little countries like Monaco in Europe, or in Japan, or in Saudi Arabia with King Fahd, or the Hussein family that has ruled Jordan. Monarchies are going to be around for a long time, or at least as long as we have families who are given the power to rule. The other form of autocracy we're going to talk about are dictatorships. Dictatorships are the rule of one leader who has unlimited power. So again, it's the rule of one. This power is usually taken by force. Dictators usually have a strong military that supports their takeover of power and helps them maintain that power from threats both at home and the outside. We've had a bunch of dictators in the last 100 years. Just to name a few: Benito Mussolini of Italy, Adolf Hitler of Germany, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union, Mao Zedong of Communist China, Idi Amin of Uganda, Muammar Gaddafi of Libya, and Saddam Hussein of Iraq. Of course, these eccentric characters can be easy targets for making fun or of ridicule, but in actuality, they're very dangerous because of the brutality that they use to maintain control of their citizens. And these leaders have absolute control over their people's lives in every aspect, brainwashing them to believe that the leader is out for their own good and looking after the people, that the people should worship them, and that these leaders deserve their worship, because after all, everything they do is for the good of the people. The next form of government we're going to look at is an oligarchy. It's very unique because it's actually the rule of a small group of people who have complete control. Usually these people are elites. They are the upper class of society. This small group, this oligarchy, rules over the rest of society, believing that only they have the abilities, the education, the right stuff to make decisions for everyone else. The best example of an oligarchy is communist China today. Its leadership is actually just a central committee that is chosen by the Communist Party to run the country. Within that central committee, there's one man that's chosen to lead the country for a time. But it's the Communist Party that really rules China. They have the final say, really the only say, in what is good for the Chinese people. But now imagine there's no government at all. People are just free to do whatever they want. There are no laws, no police. There's nothing at all, no government. This is what we call anarchy, the absence of government. Now, this is what makes it tricky because anarchy isn't a form of government, it's the absence of it. But still, anarchy is something that people look to as an answer to how we rule ourselves. That in the end, what they say is the best way to rule ourselves is to have no government, to be free to do what we want, and that the people in the end have the final say. They believe that people should be free to associate with other people without having to be subject to any one government or authority. But for those people who want a form of government that gives the people a voice in how they live their lives, well, then democracy works well enough. See, democracy is the rule of the people, a chance for the people to say what they want, do what they want, to have the leaders that they want. Democracy is the rule of citizens. Democracy is actually an old form of government that goes all the way back to the days of ancient Greece, ancient Athens. There's two forms of democracy we're going to look at. First, there's direct democracy. This is when the people themselves make the laws, where they don't elect officials, where the people actually step out and vote on what they want. They might voice their opinions on issues. They might actually carry out a vote to see who in the community agrees or doesn't agree on an issue, and then that becomes a law based on what the people wanted. And it's this type of democracy that the people of ancient Greece and Athens had developed, and it's still being used today. For example, in Switzerland, a Landsgemeinde, there's a little bit of German there for you. In the Landsgemeinde, what they do is they practice direct democracy by actually voting on laws that they want or don't want, by merely getting together in a town square. And when the roll call is made, they hold up a card to show what their vote is, and the votes are tallied. It's a simple majority rules in making laws. Pretty much all modern democracies, though, follow representative democracy, and that's where they actually have the people making decisions on who their leaders will be by electing them, and then the leaders then make the laws. It was the ancient Romans who actually developed this form of government. What they did was they would elect members of the Senate, the Roman Senate, who would then make the laws for the people of Rome. Our founding fathers then borrowed this idea in creating the government we have today, a republic, which is essentially the same thing as a representative democracy. In fact, every time you say the Pledge of Allegiance, you're actually referring to the type of government we have, a republic. So we, the people, the voters, the citizens of the United States, we vote for or elect the representatives we want in our government at the local, state, and national level. And then what they do is they choose what laws they're going to create, what laws they're going to write. And if we don't like it, well, we can always go back and elect somebody else. In the end, though, they make the laws, but we get to choose who they will be. That wraps up another podcast. Thanks for listening. Make sure that you go back and write the questions for your Cornell notes and go back over the notes again, watch the video again if you have to, whatever it takes to make sure you know these words well. So study up. I'm sure you got a quiz coming somewhere down the road. We'll see you guys in class. So long.